Space Coconut.
That is right.
Okay, hello.
Surprise! You're picked.
Oh,
All right.
this is stressful.
All right. Sorry, we're both talking. All right. Vitas, go ahead and how do you? Did I say that right, or is it Vitas?
It's Vitas. It was
Vitas.
originally with a W, but no one could pronounce it, so now it's with V.
All right. Go ahead and share with us your, just a little bit about yourself and the topic you wanted to talk about.
Okay, so, I'm a DBD player and a killer main who's been playing for 4 years now. So that's, I like to consider myself a veteran, but the topic that I wanted to talk about is how the perks start kind of layering on top of each other, because there's only so much you can do with the very simple rules of DBD. Because let's be honest, what is there? It's like generators and hooks and totems, and basically those are like all the props you can work with.
Healing, there's different aspects of it.
Yeah, and that's why, especially recently, we've been seeing perks that I would consider very similar, with the recent hex perks coming to mind the most. So like Retribution, Thrill of the Hunt, and Undying all play around the same general idea. Retribution not so much, but Thrill of the Hunt and Undying, I'd say definitely so.
Absolutely.
Because Retribution, after all, is more about punishing the cleansing, whilst the other two are about preventing.
And
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, the recent Q&A where Almo talks about the different perks that deal with the gens, that while they seem similar, that they were actually different because they do slightly different things. And
Yeah,
while
I definitely disagree with that.
while he's technically right, he's using that technicality to avoid the main issue, in that you're absolutely right. The space for perks and the what perks can do is really, really limited, and they're probably reaching the very bottom of the barrel for perk ideas.
Yeah, and that's why we're seeing more and more of basically meme perks, something like Red Herring or the newly added Deception, which are fun, but ultimately, if you want to play seriously, then that's not something you'll ever use. And I think that it's important so that we get both types of perks. But basically, it's like, okay, sorry. You can...
No, you're okay. I was actually thinking Deception is the locker perk, right?
Yeah.
That one has gotten me. It's gotten me really good a few times, and if a good survivor decides to use that and go into stealth mode, escaping chases that way, I think that's a really good. I think that's an example of a good perk that they've done. Unfortunately, for the killer side, there's not too much else that I can think of that they could do. But I mean, as much as I don't, the counterplay to Deception is really good. But then we have the other one that lets them pull the pallet down. I forget the name of that one.
Power Struggle, right? The new one.
Power Struggle. And then they have that where they fall back on, just their old, what can we do to, let the survivor do it on their own. I don't like that direction that they're going with some of these perks.
I don't have a problem with Power Struggle, because it's like, you'll use it in once every 5 games. So I think it's very satisfying for the survivor. And yeah, it is unfun for the killer, but honestly, this game has a ton of stuff that's unfun for either side, so
for both sides,
deal with it.
Okay, yeah, so go right ahead.
You talked about how killers have an even more I'd say that killers have even tinier of a space to design perks around, because honestly, they don't really have time to play with meme perks. So
yeah, you're absolutely
I
right.
was thinking, how could you actually deal with that? Because honestly, like in a year or two, if nothing is done, then the game like yeah, I have no idea what even to think about that. So, and I
I,
honestly doubt they'd want to add a new big mechanic. If they wanted to do that, they would have done it already, in my opinion.
yeah. Oh, they never brought up the beginning thing that they were talking about, the end game collapse for the beginning of the game. They haven't talked about that. And I think by the time they do implement that, they'll use that as their new avenue for perks and things like that. But I mean, unless they change the foundation of the game, unless they change some of the more frustrating things in the game, they're not going to have room to mess with the perks. Because, so like for killers, the gen speeds is an issue, and so a lot of perks that deal with gens actively slowing them down are the perks that most killers will go for. And they try and make new generator perks that kind of do the same thing. They don't work because they don't do the job well enough, and it's just a matter of they end up using the perks to solve problems when they should be solving the problems and then making perks. Dark Devotion, when it first came out, I really liked that, and I wish that they made more perks like it, because the idea behind it is it changes how the killer behaves. It doesn't have a super powerful impact, because you can't track survivors with it. You have to sacrifice more perks and things, but it changes the behavior, but it doesn't directly impact survivors. And seeing more perks like that do something odd would be really beneficial. But with the other problems, killers are forced to solve those problems with the perks.
Yeah, and I was actually trying to think about what could be done, and the first idea that came to my mind was implementing perk categories. So because you were talking about perks that aren't picked because you have to go for the slowdown, and the other ones may be fun, but they're just not good enough. And I'm thinking that that's also partially because they can't really make good perks because they'll just stack on top of each other and break the game. So I was thinking about making it so there are different categories and you can pick only one or two from each. So for survivors, you could have second chance perks, healing or aura reading, and for killers like chase, slowdown, and hexes. It would ideally remove some constraints in regards to perk design, because then even if a perk is similar, you could have this strong aspect of it that is different, and then there's not really an issue. It will also, like I said, just allow the devs to make stronger perks, which I think is fun because come on. It's pop for what, 2 years now? And ideally it would also, I'd say, make more specific builds a bit more serious, because currently everyone is just a jack of all trades or even a master of all trades, and maybe classes could become more of a thing.
It's not a bad idea, because then you can limit, say, I'll you could limit survivors to either picking Decisive Strike or Unbreakable, but not both. You could limit killers from using what's an awful combo that I guess in regards to hexes, this is the problem. Hex Undying solves the problem that hexes have, but for the sake of this argument, like you said, you would have either Hex Undying or Hex Ruin or another hex. You would have a slot, like you're saying, to place this type of perk.
Support hex. I'm sorry. Or even make hexes and support hexes to different categories, because honestly now we have quite a few perks that don't work on their own and are more there to support.
That's true. Thrill of the Hunt, like you said, really wouldn't do anything on its own but support other hexes. That's not a bad idea. I kind of like that idea, actually, limiting killers from being able to do one or two things. So one of the big what was it? Thanatophobia pairing with Sloppy Butcher pairing with Dying Light made the game almost unbearable for survivors. But if they improved the strength of Thanatophobia and then only allowed killers to use Thanatophobia or Sloppy Butcher or Dying Light, that would be able to make, that would give the developers space to make a strong perk. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. That's really not a bad idea.
I think even for survivors, it would be a lot more fun because one game you're facing a killer whose build relies on Thanatophobia, which is very powerful and passive, so you gotta heal. And other times it's Dying Light, so it's a completely different gameplay. Had the perks gotten a power buff they need, I
or
would
it's
see
a
really cool.
or it's a doctor using chlorophobia.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I actually kind of like that idea.
Yeah, and the other one that I have that I think is probably what we will see is them integrating status effects in perks again a lot more. Something like new exhaustion perks, or integrating haste and endurance more. With the last one, they'd have to be really careful because that can be a pain. Or they could even create some new effects. And here, I was supposed to give you an idea, but I actually don't have an idea.
Oh, you're okay, but you're absolutely right. It would open up space for them to do more with the perks, because then they wouldn't be able to stack up together, because the perks stacking together is what's causing a lot of this problem. So yeah, that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that with us, Vitas. Is there anything else you want to say?
Subscribe to Coconut on YouTube.
Yeah, do it, bitches.
Okay,
I appreciate that.
It was wonderful
No problem.
to talk to you.
You too. Take care, buddy. Wow, that was a really good idea.